Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of The Left Wing. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given. Joined as always by John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics, and joined by special returning guest Superman Todd. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing great. I appreciate you having me on again.
Yeah, we always love having Superman Todd on here. A recurring guest who we love. I guess we love all our recurring guests, otherwise they wouldn't be recurring guests. But John and I were just talking backstage about how we essentially took a week off of the show. Hell of a week to take off, John. What happened there? How did we cram 40 news stories into 9 or 10 days?
So, okay, while I do think that there were some very, very important things that happened, I also have the unfortunate thought that this is just the new normal. And like, if we chose to take any random week off, I don't know if it would be any worse. That's the problem. But yeah, no, I was taking a break from content creation totally because I was on vacation. My fiance wanted to be romantic, which means don't be on fucking Twitter the whole time. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go cold turkey. And I'm not going to lie, when some of these headlines started coming in, I started just like itching. I was like, I got to get these takes off. But I, like coming back, it was hard to get back on the wagon. Like it was, I made my first TikTok today since I've been back. And it was genuinely like, oh God, how do I jump back into this cesspool of shit? Because there's so much. It's exactly what happened last time, but on steroids. Like she's like, so much shit is constantly going out that you can't even focus too hard on any one thing. It is a clever tactic, and I really don't know how to combat it.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that when we talk about Trump and the executive orders and everything with that strategy. But let's go ahead and hop into the big news story. So another thing we were talking about backstage is how before the show, we send out topics that we were going to cover. And I sent the topics out before the plane crash last night. And John and I were just saying how everything else seems like old news now. There's no way, like we all came in knowing we would have stuff to say about this. But in case you guys haven't heard, there was an air traffic accident last night in which an American Airlines plane was, did you guys see the video of this? It was ran into by an Army Black Hawk helicopter, resulting in roughly 64 people dying, I believe. And I was just saying to John that to me, this tragedy just seems especially harsh. Harsh, the wrong word, like a gut punch that even in like the darkest, tragedy, we have mass shootings every other day, it seems like. But this one just seems to weigh on me a lot more. But John, you said you disagreed. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't mean to be insensitive.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm saying this like, we are inundated with tragedy every day. This one definitely seems to have taken news headlines, I think, because of the airplaneness of it. And like, there's just an innate fear of flying. I was just on planes. I know that it's the safest way to travel. And yet you're still, when you hit turbulence, you're still like, oh my God, because it's probably one of the most terrifying ways to die. Like you die in a car crash. As long as you die pretty quickly, you're, whatever. But like just the idea of falling through the sky in an airplane is uniquely terrifying. So there's that. I get it. But like, I don't know. It just seems like, this sort of thing happens sometimes. Like this is one of those things where it's like, I'm not even confident it's really anyone's fault. Like, it's one of those things where it could just be random error. It could be a result of the Trump cuts that he's been making. It could be a result of the multiple warnings that have been made by tons of pilots and air traffic controllers about overwork and fatigue. It could be so many things. None of them seem particularly tragic to me, more than any other tragedy, if that makes sense, other than the fact that it's related to an airplane. But like, that's kind of just like, I don't know, obvious bias. I don't know. Todd, what do you think?
It's super tragic, and I really haven't thought that much into it because in my mind, things can just be accidents. I feel like we've got to a point where, it wasn't 10 minutes after that collision happened and it hit, social media or the news waves before the conspiracy theorists started just talking about all of their expertise and how flight patterns work and what Black Hawk helicopters can or can't do. And I just really haven't given much thought today other than just the tragedy of it. pretty terrible. Do I think that Donald Trump is probably going to catch a lot of flack over it? Yes. Should he? Yes. Do I absolutely know that it has nothing to do with DEI? Yes, I do know that. That's about the extent of what I know about it.
You know, Todd,
Yeah.
I will disagree with you there because while we don't know anything yet, I do know that before we had this like unqualified white man take the position of defense secretary, we never had a military copter run into a commercial airline flight. So it could be the result of DEI for all I know. TJ, what do you think?
Well, about that with Pete Hegseth and everything. Well, first I'll address what Todd mentioned with should Trump be blamed for this. Now, I know that Trump came in. I think he fired the FAA director and he froze up hiring, whatever. And this all happened about 10 days ago. I'm not entirely convinced this is Donald Trump's fault. I don't care. I don't. Yeah. I like this is because this isn't a well, if they do it, it's okay. If we no, this is about winning, right? It's about power. And if the roles are reversed, you know for a fact the Republicans will be doing this. This is just good politics. Not on the political side, yeah. Like Trump should be hammered on this every single day for as long as they can. Just like the 13 Marines dying in Afghanistan wasn't Joe Biden's fault. Didn't matter, right? That's going to be pinned on him because, the buck stops with him. So politically, that is the correct move. I agree. As far as you're right, John.
You're right. I don't care if Joe Biden was personally flying the helicopter. I'm still going to blame Donald Trump for it.
Right, exactly.
It can still stick.
Yeah. This is be a great way to Biden go out, but that would be a real comedic way for Biden to end it all. But the thing with, you mentioned how this is, as far as you know, whenever, what was it, Lloyd Austin was Secretary of Defense, we didn't have military helicopters flying into commercial aircraft. That's true. However, Todd can probably back me up on this. It's true that commercial aircraft, flying on a commercial aircraft is the safest way to travel. I think that this is the first fatality for an American airline or an American domestic flight in 15 years. They're incredibly rare, but the same cannot be said for military helicopters. Todd's right. Those things, I feel like they crash every other week, it seems like. So yeah, this is the first one. Like, this is the first time I've seen anything, because you guys see the video on this. The video with the helicopter, I mean, it looks so strange. Like the plane is just coming down to land and the helicopter is like a bullet right into it. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And you're right, Todd. People have coming out with the conspiracy shit. People, not everything is a conspiracy. Okay. In fact, most things are not a conspiracy. And when the story came out, and you're right, Todd, immediately, I said, who was on the plane? Who was on the helicopter? Ooh, I wonder what target they're going after. This is a distraction. No, folks, accidents just happen sometimes. Even freakishly weird ones. Like Todd was saying how people were talking about, well, here's what I know. It's funny because I did the same thing. It's like when you're in air travel I was in missile defense, they have these things called ACOs, airspace control orders, which is essentially a highway that is built for you in space, where it's like, hey, these are your like literal left and right, up and down limits. You stay in, that is your lane when you're flying. So it's hard for that to happen because people stay in their highways. But I didn't know how often they were having these flights, these military flights over Ronald Reagan Airport. Apparently, that's a real common thing. I didn't figure that out until just now. I don't know. Maybe that's something needs to change. Well, what do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I heard an expert talking about it, how they use that lane of travel for Black Hawk training missions, and I guess this Black Hawk they were just training with their NVGs, flying with night vision really close to an airport, which sounds kind of odd.
Yes.
Especially like I think about how much planning and risk assessment goes into driving a Humvee with night vision goggles on at 15 to 20 miles per hour with no traffic around. I can't imagine what goes into flying a Black Hawk, but as this expert explained that, so we know the Black Hawk, it doesn't fly on autopilot. That's a person actually manipulating everything that aircraft does. And they had their limit of, their ceiling's like 200 feet. They're supposed to be operating between 150, 200 feet. The fact that their little lane that they were taking and that altitude could go into the path of the autopilot landing of an airplane just seems really weird to me. But it doesn't. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I just think it just happened for the first time, and now someone is finally like, "Oh, yeah, maybe that's a bad idea."
Yeah, that is. I thought the same thing too. For those of you who have never worn NVG's night vision goggles, the first thing is that your depth perception is way off. It is way off. Like you would think it's not just like, oh, I can see in the dark now. Everything is like 3 feet closer or further away than you think it actually is. And lights are blinding with those things on in the dark. And so I've never flown a helicopter, so I don't know how often they do this or whatever. But I did hear that it could have been a training exercise where their instruments were off and they were going to fly dark. And I saw another thing about how the tower was talking to the helicopter pilot and asked them if they saw the plane. And if you watch the video, there's 2 planes. There's the plane that crashed, and then there's a plane far above it. And the helicopter pilot responded that he saw the plane, but he may have saw the wrong one and didn't know the other one was coming. So yeah, a freak accident. Weird that it had the possibility of ever being in this path. There's going to be an investigation on this. And what I should get to real quick for the whole thing is that Donald Trump is blaming DEI for this, like Todd mentioned, which is not shocking, right? Of course he would do that. But what do you think about that, John, when you first heard this?
Yeah, I mean, actually, that was the first I heard of it because, like, I kind of had a busy day this morning, didn't really look at the news, and then didn't hop on until like lunchtime. And I was like, oh, that was the first thing I saw about it was he was playing it on DEI. But like, it's just obvious, and it really makes me think about how long it will take before the average American actually realizes that when they say DEI, they mean the N-word. Like, we know that. We've been saying that for years now.
But they do know that. Most of them do know that. They do know that that's what they mean. And they know that the N-word is uncouth. It's rude. It's socially unacceptable. But the negative connotation, like most of these people, they look at TJ and they go, in their mind, they think he's not as smart as other people, just at baseline.
Yeah, the rest of us do that when we hear him talk.
Very nice, John. Very nice.
and so, you know, a lot of the I'm not racist stuff is just a front to meaning that I'm not openly racist. But the idea that Black people are not smarter, and if they're in positions of power or authority, then there had to be some sort of system in play that gave them some sort of advantage to be there. That's still what most of these people believe. They just know they're not supposed to publicly say it because to them, the saying it and verbalizing it in that way, that would be racist. But to quietly assume it in your mind and understand it to be true while saying DEI is not racist to them.
So Todd, I completely agree with what you're saying there. And I guess to, provide more nuance to what I'm saying, my question is, when does that cognitive dissonance cease to exist? Because eventually, at one point, just saying the N-word wasn't racist, and eventually, we all decided that it was. So, and at one point, it was totally okay to say, Black people are just naturally inferior. Eventually, that flipped, and we could no longer say that. Racists remained racist the whole time, but they, started saying different things, like you're saying. But it feels to me that, you have us, you have your liberals who are obviously going to think this is racist, but you have that large, low information voting block, your average American that doesn't follow things very closely. When they hear things like, DEI is leading to accidents, they don't necessarily, at least they are not conscious of the fact that they are assuming these kind of racially prejudiced thoughts. At some point, that will become a conscious thing. At some point, everyone will realize the game here. And it's got to happen soon, because I think TJ's pulling up the clip now. But this is utterly absurd when he goes, yeah, there's no evidence. It's just common sense that Black people operating a plane leads to crashes. Eventually, enough of those messages in front of enough people, I feel like are going to make them think, that doesn't make much sense. At some point, that must be the case. Maybe I'm the fucking optimistic one again.
I think I think it all depends. Up until a certain point, we were getting less and less racist as a society, right? We were pulling away from that. but I think we would like to make the assumption that will continue moving forward. But I think the question is, are we at some turning point where we start going backward in that way of thinking? Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
we assume that there's being progress towards civil rights because that's the trajectory I think we would all agree we're on the trajectory of more and more civil rights. But has it been put? Has that been put in reverse, and now we're going backwards? Or
I think
John,
John,
I want to cut TJ off on the racial topic before we let him speak again.
It's a reverse of what I usually do to John. So I think John kind of nailed it earlier when you were talking about how it was okay to say certain things in the past and then it just doesn't. The sentiment doesn't necessarily go away. It's just how you say it. It's like, what's his name? Lee Atwater said how, we used to be able to say the N-word, but now we just say busing or welfare, and it conveys the same message. So yeah, 70 years ago, people could be more overtly and explicitly racist, but the language just changes to busing, to affirmative action, to political correctness, to woke, to DEI, and then to something else. So yeah, I think the general public sometimes, eventually, this open bigotry will leave a bad taste in their mouth. But we also have to just accept the reality that people, like Todd said, to them, racism is wearing a white hood. Racism is saying racist things or being mean to someone because of the color of their skin. We have a lot of niceness politics that, oh, well, I know a black person and I think they're fine. I think that that's a good, the black family down the street, I got no issue with them. No, they're cool. But overall in the country, I think that they've had it way too easy for too long. That's just how, people kind of see this thing. So I think that, as a whole, it's better. But, people still we had that poll before the election that 50% of America, 54% were in favor of mass deportation. I mean, as far as policy, people have a lot of racial animus, whether they say it or not. And yeah, John, I'm pretty sure this is a clip you were talking about with old Donald Trump here. Let's see what he had to say about the traffic accident in the air.
But then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. You then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
Yeah. So, of course, it was once again, we didn't at the time. We didn't know the names. We didn't know anything about these folks, but gonna go out on a limb and say it was DEI that did this with no evidence whatsoever because it feeds us the narrative that they want. What do you think, Todd?
I think that here's the thing. What year was Donald Trump born? 46, 47? And I was thinking the other day, Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. So Donald Trump was already, a 20-something-year-old person when that happened. What brought me to this was seeing how there's that order that you're to stop celebrating all these things like Martin Luther King Day and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, Donald Trump at the time that Martin Luther King was being assassinated was growing into a man with a dad in real estate who was refusing to rent his real estate to black people, and in a few years was going to be sued for that. And I was just like, you know what? Donald Trump is it probably a guy who, when he heard the news of Martin Luther King was assassinated, was probably a guy who was like, yeah, that's what you get for being a race baiting instigator or something like that. I think we forget, this is an old ass man. This is a dude who was raised by racists. He's old as hell. And when he stands up there and says that, because I have common sense, he might as well have just said, because black people aren't as smart as white people. Everybody knows that, or women aren't as good as men. Everybody knows that. or people who aren't white aren't as good as white people. Everybody knows that. Like, that's what he means.
Yeah, because you're right, and what this comment, and not that this comment's going to move the needle. This is, again, we're going to be done talking about this in about 48 hours. But the thing that these comments do is it moves the question away from whether DEI is a good policy and just directly towards should fucking minorities have jobs. Because if you're saying to me, I think DEI is a bad policy because X, Y, and Z, I can give you the benefit of the doubt and say, maybe you're not just speaking out of pure racial prejudice here. But if you say to me, well, it's common sense, if a DEI program exists, any accident that occurs must be the fault of minorities being hired. I don't even know what other conclusion you want to draw. Like I don't even know what other conclusion can be drawn from that other than if minorities are working there, it's a worse place. That's just what that means. There's no other way around it. I haven't even seen a conservative try and spin it in any other way. It just is what they're saying now, which is why I kind of said eventually it's going to become so clear and obvious that normal people are going to start to understand it.
Yeah, there's and they kind of give the game away too, because I haven't seen if they've identified who the helicopter pilot was, but if the helicopter pilot comes out and it's a black person, immediately every Republican is like, look at that, military lowered their standards, got this DEI. In fact, hold on, this isn't about race, but Donald Trump, I don't know if you guys saw Donald Trump talking about how the FAA is accepting people with physical and mental conditions. If you see me make that, all right, I'm gonna play that real quick. All right, here we go. See what old Donnie's got to say here.
Various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office.
All right, so I wanted to discuss this because this is something that happens all the time with people whenever they start criticizing diversity initiatives or DEI initiatives, whatever you want to call affirmative action, because they'll read that. Because I checked out the article. It was a New York Post article from about a week and a half ago, like Trump said, and it's correct. The article says everything that Trump said, that the word for word, that the FAA is looking to hire people with severe mental or physical disabilities. And when it asked them what positions will we be putting these people in, the FAA responded with a very blanket, well, there are many positions we can find for them. So people are going to read that. People are going to read that, or they'll hear Trump say it more likely. And they'll say, wow, the FAA is just going to hire someone with epilepsy and say, congratulations, you're an aircraft controller now. It's not how it works, folks. That's not how any of this shit works. They get away with this stuff all the time because you can actually check. You can actually check with your own two eyes what the qualifications are to be an aircraft controller for the FAA. And I'll do you the favor of pulling it up right now. So these are the qualifications you need to be an aircraft controller. You got to be U.S. citizen, registered for selective service, be younger than 31 years old before the closing date of your application, have 1 year of general work experience or 4 years of education, speak English clearly enough to be understood over communications equipment, be willing to relocate, and then it goes on for the training. And the training states that entry-level applicants must complete required training courses, spend several months at the academy in Oklahoma City. They're paid while training. After graduating, individuals are placed in locations across the country, and they must gain 1 to 3 years of on-the-job experience before becoming a certified controller. You also have to keep up with your certifications. You can't just walk off the street with whatever DEI initiative they found you with and get the job. It doesn't work that way anywhere. It doesn't work that way for schools. Doesn't that work that way for medical schools or getting a job as a doctor or an aircraft controller? The people who were recruited through DEI still have to meet the standards. That's how this works. So anytime you see a pilot, that pilot has met all the standards, no matter what their race is, their gender is, their ethnicity. That's why this is so pernicious that Trump will say something like that and trick people, because I guarantee millions of people heard Trump, a few dozen will hear me, saying that, hey, this is what the FAA is doing. And they hired people who can't see, and they're making them aircraft controllers. No wonder it's crashing. It's like, no, they got to pass all the qualifications. But that's what you do when you lie. That's how Trump lies all the time. I don't know if you guys have seen that. What do you think, John?
Yeah, so two things here. One, I'm just going to give... It pisses me off that I never hear people actually explain, like, other than us, other than content creators. I don't hear, like, real people fucking explain this, and by real people, I mean, like, actual media pundits, actual Democratic politicians. Like, for every job in America, with the exception of, professional athletes and, like, the highest level, tech and pharma researchers, right? Like, there are hundreds of equally qualified applicants for the role. Just every single job, every normal American has ever applied to, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people who are equally qualified. They're interchangeable. And when you see what we have always seen, which I think most people would agree, historically at least, white people have been disproportionately selected for those roles because of the color of their skin. And when you do that, you create a problem. It's just like a stock portfolio. Even if one stock is equally qualified to invest in than another, if it doesn't diversify your portfolio enough, it's going to be bad to invest in that stock. You want a diversified portfolio to prepare for weaknesses. And that is what these DEI programs do. They take the pool of 100 equally qualified applicants, and instead of allowing the personal biases that are innate in all of us that end up with, things like 50% of people with a white sounding name on their resume receive interviews for job application twice as much as the same resume with a black sounding name, in order to adjust for those problems that cause these white people to be overly represented in the job market. You just, instead of selecting those people from the 100, you make sure you're selecting a certain amount of people from these unrepresented populations in them. That wasn't even the best possible explanation for it, or the most pithy, but it is better than most of what I have heard media pundits and Democratic politicians explain this. And so people just think, oh, we're selecting unqualified black people who can't see to be air traffic controllers. And that's just not the case. Second is that this is a great example what he did here with the FAA of what of that policy of what I'm starting to coin as Hansel and Gretel fallacy, where they do this thing. And I want to share this tweet that I just pulled up. It isn't even the best representation of it, but if you're in political discourse, you've seen this before. Where Republicans will say this: step one, it's not really happening. Step two, yeah, it's happening, but it's not a big deal. Step three, it's a good thing, actually. Step four, people freaking out about it are the real problem. They use this attack on Democrats all the fucking time. And there's a reason they do this. It's because they set us up with these fucking bait trails where it's like, Donald Trump says that, and we know it's fucking ridiculous. So we're like, that's not fucking happening. And then it's like, oh, it comes out that this is a real policy that they have. But it doesn't mean the thing Donald Trump says it was. It doesn't mean that people are taking unqualified fucking blind applicants to be FAA air traffic safety controllers. But that doesn't matter, because they said, no, you lied now. You said it wasn't happening. And it is happening. And it's like, no one fucking disagreed that there wasn't some policy to do this. We disagree with the idea that the federal government is hiring blind people to be air traffic controllers. That's the thing Donald Trump said. That is the thing we are attacking, not the actual policy. But then they move the goalposts and you get stuck in this trap. And that's why that happens. If you start looking for that pattern, you'll start seeing it all the time. It's very intentional. It's honestly a smart rhetorical thing to do.
It is. It's a rookie mistake you see a lot, because I guarantee you there are a lot of lefties out there who are saying this policy doesn't exist. This sounds crazy. And then they're going to get caught in that exact same trap. So yeah, guys, make sure you actually do your own research, as the Republicans say, and find out what you're talking about before you respond to something like that. What do you think about that, Todd, when you saw that?
I knew what it meant as soon as he said it. As soon as he came out of his mouth that we're hiring mentally and physically disabled people, I just immediately was like, to the person who read Donald Trump's Truth Social post that he had deployed the army to California to turn on the magic water button to the on position, the millions of people who read that and thought that sounds exactly like something that really happened, to them that means that a person with Tourette's who's blind and has a million other problems is on the radio telling airplanes what to do. And when in reality, it's just, hey, this person can be a bathroom attendant because they deserve to have a job, or to pick up a suitcase and put it on a conveyor belt. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. It just goes down to the qualification part too. Yeah, no one is getting jobs that they cannot perform. That is like, people will say this, like Charlie Kirk was talking about. Wow, when I see a black pilot, how do I know that this pilot is actually up to the task? Because they're there, right? Like, if you guys ever met anyone who worked for a commercial airline, the qualifications are stringent as hell. These people are tested all the time. Their vision is tested. If they fail a simulation, you lose your license for like 3 months. Like, they put you through the most rigorous training possible. It's why we haven't had a domestic fatality in a decade and a half, because they are on these folks. What I wanted to point out too, speaking of our new president here, is, did you guys see in the immediate aftermath of the plane crash what Trump posted on Truth Social? This is something that
the conspiracy theory shit.
This is something that I had thought about the first time Trump was elected, that, oh wow, Donald Trump is going to be the guy who goes up on stage in front of not just America but the whole world whenever there's a suicide bombing or a school shooting or a terrorist attack. He's going to be the one addressing the nation. And of course, he didn't let us down with what he said last night. The airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It was a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it could have been prevented. Not good. And look, if your I don't know, your cousin, your stoner cousin posted that, and they're like, okay, yeah, of course, this is the president of the United States. I know that gravitas and dignity died a long time ago, but him just tweeting like, oh, Cap, kind of weird, something's going on here. I would say it's beneath the dignity of the president, but really nothing is at this point.
I don't know much about helicopters, but I do know they go up and down. Why didn't this one do it? Just asking questions.
If I were the pilot, I simply would have not crashed the aircraft. That is basically what he's saying. Yeah, I don't know. It's something is weird and it's unexpected. It doesn't mean it's a conspiracy, except when Donald Trump is involved, because he loves this shit. But I don't know. It's just a really tragic situation. When I first heard that it happened, I knew the altitude had to be fairly low because there was a helicopter involved, and I saw it was 150 feet, and I thought, oh, maybe I don't know how bad the crash was. They found a way to, no. Then I saw the video, so okay, nobody's surviving that. And I don't know if you guys saw the video of a guy who was saying that he had texted his wife right before the accident. I know it was just some sad stuff to see. And to see that, the leadership we have in the nation immediately pivots to racism or sexism or whatever type of bigotry you want to put in there, that for a fact that if either of the crews have one minority on them, they're going to be jumping all over and say, aha, I bet, with no evidence at all, I bet this was a DEI issue. It's not good for the nation. Not good at all.
Speaking of things that are not good for the nation, TJ. So this is probably, as much as it's getting a lot of news coverage, it's probably the least important bad thing Donald Trump has done in the past several days here, because I will say, going into the Trump presidency, I had a little bit of optimism that we would experience a Trump presidency with like about a 1.5 times multiplier on the shittiness. And that optimism has just flown out the window. And that happened to me when he tried to pause all federal grants and spending, which is one of those headlines where you read it and at first you're like, Okay, that sounds pretty shitty. And then like you let it wash over you and you realize what it actually means, and it's Donald Trump is trying to take the power of the purse from Congress. And that is one of the most terrifying things that I've ever actually seen in my life. Like the implication of that. It is one of the most staunch parts of the Constitution. You cannot read it any other way than the Congress has the power of the purse and the executive has the responsibility to distribute those funds. And for him to say, "Oh, I'm just not going to do that," creates a constitutional crisis. And I want to talk a little bit about how you guys interpreted that and what you thought of the general response to it from Congress, from Democrats, from the media. TJ, we'll start with you. What was your first take when that happened?
Yeah, my first take when it happened was, I think what a lot of people took away from it was that everything's being frozen. And, it seemed like a weird misstep, honestly. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, even for Donald Trump, that's pretty dumb. That's something that's going to affect a lot of people. And of course, a lot of people mention how, this is going to affect Medicaid and food stamps and rental assistance, and how, wow, a lot of Trump voters depend on stuff like that. And then I saw that it was struck down by the judge. And then the Trump administration they rescinded it and started doing a lot of backpedaling, saying, no, listen, this is not going to affect anything like that, like WIC, like SNAP or rental assistance, anything that goes directly to individuals. That was not our target. This is just saying that we wanted to review all of these spending. And I saw, what's his name, Stephen Miller, saying something like, we want to make sure that if there's a program that says we're going to send X amount of dollars to teach critical race theory at this school, that we can pull that away. And it's like, well, you could have just said that, right? You could have just said, we're going to do a review on a lot of these things that have been allocated by Congress, and we're going to say if we are not going to do it, as if we have that authority. But you didn't. You just came out and said, we're going to put a pause on all this. And I wish I could remember who I heard this from, because I thought it was a good observation, that it goes to a lot what you said earlier, John, about how Trump did this flurry of executive orders, each one more insane than the last. And it could just be something like a I don't know if terror is the wrong word, but just like an unsettling shot across the bow. He was like, yeah, this is what I can do. This is my intention. I mean, the guy who was in charge of this is Russell Vought. And Russell Vought is a guy we covered on the show months ago, who is, I think he was one of the writers for the Project 2025 thesis or whatever. And now he's in charge of the Office of Management Budget or something like that. So that's what I kind of... Yeah, something
I know what it stands for.
I can't remember. Yeah, I always forget the M stands for. It's not management, but I can't remember. But what did you think when you saw it, Todd?
I just thought, honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, because it's still hard to put together the messaging they've put out on it, right?
Yes.
Even when they rescinded it, it was like, we're just rescinding the memo, but the actual application of the executive order is still totally in force. And then I'm pretty sure I heard that the judge actually used that press release that the White House made on it as evidence to, like, I'm going to do a restraining order of some sort because you guys don't seem like you're actually not doing what you're saying that you're going to not do. But I'm like, how is it that I, as just a normal dude, understand that you can't freeze all that kind of spending without affecting millions of people instantly? But it's like the Trump White House, miscalculated. Like, within a few hours, they were like, "Oh yeah, we can't do that." What is the level of incompetence, or was that purposeful? Was that some sort of psych op? I don't know. None of it makes sense.
Todd, let me caution you against attributing to competence what can be easily explained by incompetence. It was incompetence, and it confirms both my greatest fear and my greatest hope. And my greatest fear is that Trump will aim for dictatorial control. This was a clear indicator, as TJ said, a shot across the bow of our Constitution. If this actually were able to go through, I'd be heavily considering getting on a plane and going to another country, because it's not long after that everything goes to shit. But the greatest hope is that Trump is fucking incompetent. I've been saying this for months, if not years now, of if there's a second Trump presidency, our greatest hope is that he just can't do the Nazi shit because he's an idiot. And you're right. It is incredibly stupid for them to have done this way. There were ways to have tried to take this same shot across the bow that didn't just destroy everything entirely and take away Medicaid and shut down all of these programs. They could have done this with far more of a scalpel. And instead they took a fucking like ICBM to it. And that's the problem. Like, that's the problem for Trump, is that he can't do it. They're not competent, but it is scary that they're trying to. TJ, what do you think?
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know, because when you stack it with everything else, it just makes it seem like he's sending a message, but he would like to get things done. But it does make you wonder why they didn't go more targeted with this, because they could have. They could have. It may have failed too, but it would have sent a message of like less stability or less of a message of instability to Trump supporters, even, because what's been going on this last week and a half with the executive orders that Trump has pushed out and the stuff that he said and the stock market crash and with this air traffic accident, it's been a rough start for Trump ever since his first couple of days. Yeah, he had a pretty high approval rating, but nothing seems to be right now. And Trump coming out and saying, I'm going to gut all these programs that affect essentially 100 million Americans, a lot of Republicans. I can conceptualize what they were trying to do, but it seems kind of dumb even for them.
It is dumb, but here's the thing. The worst fear is that the people behind Project 2025, the adult Nazis in the room, so to speak, they have had all of these years to prepare. And like the fear was that those years of preparation would lead to immediate targeted sequences of events that would gain more power. And what seems to be happening more so is Trump is very much in control and using his typical blunderbuss strategy. Now, I don't want to overstate the fact that when this sort of thing receives all the attention and gets paused and we do stop it, it is a win. But there were 85 other executive orders that flew under the radar because of it. And those things do damage. And that is a way to accumulate power. But it's not a very effective way to accumulate and maintain power. It isn't something that will have lasting power after Trump is gone. It comes and goes with Trump. And the problem for the adult Nazis in the room is that Trump wants it to come and go with Trump. Trump doesn't care about anything other than Trump. And that's why you see incompetence like this, because I don't know, this might not be relatable to some people, but if you've ever had a boss who's a jackass, who wants to surround themselves with yes men, who isn't very competent, but they want things done their way anyway. You've experienced this. You've experienced doing things that you knew were stupid and incorrect because that's the way the fucking dumbass boss wanted it. And if you didn't do that, if you pushed back on him, your ass was on the chopping block. And that's exactly what's going on here. The reason that these press releases, these actual executive orders are being released with very little thought about the legal consequences, the practical consequences, and even fucking a spelling check on them is because everyone is scrambling in the Trump White House because they're afraid of getting the fucking axe from Donald Trump. And that's what happens when you surround yourself with yes men. You become incompetent. And it works for long enough. And if you're someone like Elon Musk, who's very good at the shell game, it could work for a long time for you. But when you are working at the scale of the federal government, it's not long before those cracks just crumble in on themselves. And, you know, again, I'm glad that we survived this first shot across the bow. But I am kind of disappointed that it was because of incompetence from Republicans more so than competent defense from Democrats and the media. Like, I'm not a media, you have to do this or that guy, but the media covered this as if it was a normal fucking action for the president to take. And that is the most concerning thing to me about all of this, like the headlines were Trump spending freeze instead of Trump's unconstitutional power grab to destroy the powers of Congress mandated by the Constitution. There was no urgency from the media, no urgency from Democrats to paint this as a fascist fucking coup of the United States government, which it factually was. And it does concern me if that's the energy that we're taking into this. If Trump becomes competent, we're fucked. I know it's a big if. I know it's a big if. Like, but if the adult Nazis in the room get enough power, we're fucked. Maybe we'll put it that way.
It's, we can call Trump incompetent and idiot, but he did win 2 presidential elections. Like,
I don't know that it really matters either. I don't think it really comes to whether Trump is incompetent or competent. I think it comes down to do the checks and balances of the country do what they're supposed to do. And right now, I feel like we're kind of like, even the Democrats, where are you guys? Like, I mean, Trump, it doesn't matter if the Constitution says he can't do something. If he says he's going to do it, nobody stops him.
It's kind of like
the level of loyalty that is obviously demanded by him this time. Like, watching these confirmations of these people like Hegseth and Gabbard and Patel, RFK, none of them. Have you seen these videos of the confirmation hearings where every one of them has asked the question, did Joe Biden win the 2020 election? And they're not allowed to answer that question. And they know they can't say that he does. And they go all over the place. And it's like, I felt like if you'd asked me a few months ago, if during confirmation hearings, when they're, especially people like Patel and Gabbard, who supposedly, and Kennedy too, who are supposedly on the chopping block, maybe in trouble and maybe not going to be confirmed, which I'll believe that when I see it since Hegseth got confirmed. But I figured that they would at least be like, I got to show that I'm not crazy, that I'm not a cult member, that I'm actually up for the task of the job. And they're not doing that. That's terrifying to me.
Yeah. Wait, that's one of our topics. I want to get to I have a lot to say about those confirmations too, but yeah, it's the loyalty to Trump. Like, this is every time you saw someone that he had endorsed or who was trying to get his endorsement, essentially the only thing that mattered was how much you support Trump and if you could deny the election. And it's kind of tragic that ended up winning. And, as far as John, you were talking about the unconstitutionality of Trump's actions. That's actually what weirds me out more. Because earlier I mentioned that if Trump wanted to do this, if he wanted to come right out the gate with something that's clearly unconstitutional, he already had that. He already had the birthright citizenship thing. And that would have been like, it would have been just as, illegal, but that all the Republicans would be on board with this. You taking away their Medicaid, not so much, but like, why not just stick with that one? I wanted to pull up this video here of Trump talking about the 14th. For those of you who wonder what we're talking about, birthright citizenship was granted in the 14th Amendment, that anyone born in the United States is a citizen of the United States. And Donald Trump, he wrote an executive order saying he's going to take that away. He doesn't have that authority, but, it's something the Republicans would love, so he wants to give it a shot. So here's Trump addressing this issue about the 14th Amendment.
We are fighting hard to get birthright citizenship or automatic citizenship for the children of illegal aliens. That's another way. It's automatic citizenship for children of illegal aliens. That's the other term that they use, which is actually more accurate, more understandable. And it's ridiculous. We're the only country that has it, and certainly the only country that has it to that extent. And it wasn't meant, if you look, it was really meant for children of slaves. This is when it happened. The children of slaves. It was not meant for everyone to come into our country by airplane or charging across the borders from all over the world and think they're going to become citizens. It's not meant for that. It wasn't meant for that. And hopefully at some point the courts will understand that without having to go through a whole big deal. This was meant for the children of slaves. And look at the timing of it and you'll see. And I hope judges will understand that.
All right, so I want to address this because you are going to hear both those arguments quite often for years now, I guarantee, if you haven't already, that the 14th Amendment was only meant to apply to slaves. It came right after the children of slaves and the children of slaves, because it happened right after the Civil War, and they wanted to guarantee the citizenship of Black people who, may not have had, records for it, but they were born in the States. And they'll say that, well, no other country has this. This is unique to the United States. And to address both of those points, first, yes, like primarily, you could say that, there's a reason it came right after the 13th Amendment, which guaranteed Black people the right to vote. However, it never only applied. This amendment's been around for a long time. And the best argument I think you can make against this is Native Americans, because it guaranteed their rights to citizens too. And it has for 160 years now. And it's never been overturned. Everyone's like, oh yeah, this is just how it is. And there are a lot of countries, our peers, you would say, like, industrialized nations or whatever. A lot of them don't have birthright citizenship. You won't find it in Europe or, Japan. I don't know about Australia, maybe, I'm not sure. But you find it mostly in the Western Hemisphere. And there's a pretty good reason for that, because we wanted to encourage immigration. If you come into the United States, we want you to buy into the idea of the United States of America, which is supposedly what Republicans want, right? We want you, if you're born here and you have citizenship, you have a stake in what happens to this nation, or a larger stake than you would if you weren't a citizen. And that's one of the best ways. It's one of the best ways to keep the economy growing. It's one of the best ways to strengthen our culture. There's pretty much only positives that we get from this, unless you're a racist. Then you're going to have some issues with this. But I wanted you guys to keep an eye on that, because you will be hearing that a lot. And I bring up the Native American one all the time. It's like, well, what about them? Is it going to take that away from them too? Well, no. Well, look, that's what the bill was meant for. It was meant for anyone born in the United States. The majority of people it applied to were the children of slaves and the slaves themselves. But it's a canard to just, do anything other than hide their ethnocentrism and their bigotry.
Yeah, this is one of those issues. Obviously, people know that immigration is one of my big hot button topics, but the birthright citizenship thing in particular is one of those things that it's so indicative of philosophical, ideological rot to be opposed to it. Because why? I've never heard someone give me an explanation for why two babies can be sitting next to each other in a hospital, and one should be an American citizen and the other shouldn't because of who their parents are. That makes no sense to me. It spits in the face of all men being born equal, because people don't like to follow me on, hey, that should apply to everyone, not just the people born in the United States of America. But fuck you if you're telling me that those two babies shouldn't be given the exact same rights under the law, who were born fucking next to each other in goddamn New Jersey. Like, they're both Americans. And you even have these same fucking people going, oh, well, we got declining birth rates. Oh, yada, yada, yada. Hey,
Yep.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly. How the fuck can you sit there and be like, hey, we have declining birth rates, that's a problem, and also be like, hey, these people being born here, we don't even fucking want them. Like, that's insane to me. All of it's insane to me, but that one in particular, this has become some mainstream fucking talking point, is very indicative of fucking racist ideological rot in this country, because there's really no good way to say, I don't think that baby should be an American because of who their parents are. That's fucking dumb.
What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I think, first of all, like, the idea, like the stance of it was never supposed to apply the way that it does today. Like, it was just for slaves, is like, but we got these generations of jurisprudence that says that it is. Like, do you know how many white supremacists, how many racist judges and Supreme Court sat on the bench and justified Jim Crow and segregation, but also understood that the 14th Amendment granted citizenship to people they didn't freaking like and probably didn't want in the country? Like, we had to make it to the 21st century for a mainstream political movement to make this argument and expect to be taken seriously. Like, even in the 50s and 60s, nobody was saying this. And then the whole thing about, on one hand, birth rates are down. We need more people in the workforce. There's not enough people to pay into Social Security and keep it solvent. There's not enough people paying into pension plans to take care of the boomers and all this other kind of crap. But at the same time, by God, we don't want these babies. Like, these kids don't need to stay here and work and get a tax ID number. Hell no, send them back. And you know, it all Elon Musk, what's he got, 13, 14 kids? He basically has started a freaking baby factory down in Texas where he can continue to push out kids to fix this problem that he loves to stand in front of crowds of people who are overwhelmingly MAGA and talk about how we need more babies born. JD Vance, we need more babies born. That's what we want. And then be like, yeah, but not those. Also, why would you think that's a Nazi salute I just did whenever I am so obviously a white supremacist who only wants kids who look like me to be born?
Yeah. The solution's staring them right in the face. And I like asking that question that, hey, you guys are really concerned about this low birth rate thing, and that we're not, like Todd said, we're not going to have enough young people working to support the old people. And there could be a coming economic collapse in the next 50 or 60 years if we don't solve this issue. And, well, immigration would help a whole lot, right? And plus, immigrant populations generally have higher birth rates than native populations. It's a win-win all around. And they will say stuff like, well, you know, we're worried about the cultural change for non-Americans. Like, well, if they're here and they apply, they are Americans, right? That it wouldn't be non-Americans doing it. And so, well, you know, a lot of them try to make the religion arguments. Like, well, you know, this is a Christian nation, which I love, because can someone help me out? What religion is predominant in Latin America? Can tell me? My gut tells me it's Christianity, but for some reason that's not good enough. Hell, in Africa, like, the predominant religion is Christianity. It's like, okay, well, I don't think your problem is actually the religion. It turns out it might be something else. I wanted to. I'm so glad you mentioned this, Todd, with Elon Musk, because I like the rest of you, we saw Elon Musk do the Nazi salute saying, my heart goes out to you and everything. And I've seen a lot of people say stuff like, wow, you guys think that was an okay symbol. How about you do it yourself? How about you go out there and do it? Let's see you do it, Yukar. I don't recommend that. I do not recommend that at all, because the way I see it, why wouldn't they take you up on this offer? Well, why wouldn't they? I mean, do you think these folks have shame? Do you think that they're worried about what other people think about you? Hell, even if they lose their job, they'll just be immortalized by the rest of the Republicans. And my thought is that we're going to start seeing this a lot more. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a priest named Calvin Robinson who spoke at the National Pro-Life Summit. And I want to go ahead and show you guys watching exactly what I'm talking about here. How, you know, get ready to see this a whole lot more, certainly not less.
This is the last stand for Christendom. It's make or break time. The whole of the old world is crumbling. Every country in Europe is embracing death. America, as far as I could see, is the only country fighting for life. And that's down to you guys. So God bless all of you for what you're doing. Please keep doing it. I hope that I can encourage you. And my heart goes out to you. God bless.
So I wanted to play that and draw attention, not necessarily to the salute, which, you know, obviously it is what it is. I want to draw your attention to the reaction by the crowd at the National Pro-Life Summit. Exactly. They didn't gasp in horror. They didn't meet it with silence and concern and, self-reflection. They laughed. It was hysterical. They thought it was really funny. And this guy was an Anglican priest. And as of a couple of days ago, he did lose his license. The Anglican Church defrocked him. So he lost his job. He lost his, ordained minister title and everything. But that doesn't solve the problem, because the crowd loved it.
He'll be a Southern Baptist by the end of the week.
You're right. Exactly. No, right. He'll either be an independent Baptist preacher or he'll start a podcast. Either way, he's going to be successful. He'll be perfectly fine. And that's why, like, they're going to do this. Like, we're going to see this at Trump rallies. They're going to be doing it, saying, "Oh, look how funny it is that we trolled you libs and everything." Yeah, they're going to do that. You can't stop them. I don't want to encourage that, because I can easily foresee a future where this is just a common thing. And 5 years from now, you got MAGA folks or whatever the aftermath of MAGA is, and they're just doing this as a joke until, it's not ironic anymore. What did you think when you saw it, Todd?
I was like, once I started seeing people say, "Hey, do it," and then seeing like the the stitches of people, like, you know, usually they'll kind of like clean it up a little bit, but they're doing something similar to it. And I was like, this is going to be the new F Joe Biden. This is going to be the new Let's Go Brandon. Eventually there's going to be kids who go to school and their daddy's going to be like, hey, do this salute when you do the pledge and own those libs, you know, and there's going to be, this is going to be something that while people are doing it and looking like they're in the movie Idiocracy, they're going to be looking at us as they do it and say, see, do you see how silly you look while I do this? I just don't want to live in that reality. And I made a video like you did about this thing. And there were so many people who were like, no, let them out themselves. Let them go out there and show who they really are. And like, but I want the people who do Nazi salutes to be people who I know are actually Nazis. I don't want it to become this new thing where it's also a joke to do it, and you provide this out for the actual Nazis to be like, oh no, I'm just doing the Let's Go Brandon.
Yeah. You're spot on there, is that if you allow it to become a joke, then that joke provides a shield for actual Nazis. Like, and that applies to so many things, actually. Like, there's so many. This is like 4chan fucking incarnate. Like, if you were on the internet on 4chan, and even Reddit does this all the fucking time too. Like, this is a classic thing. Oh, I'm just joking. Anytime that you corner one of these fucking 4chan Nazis into like whatever, like, oh, it's just a joke. And as long as other people are making that joke too, that cover always exists for them. So they can go and test the waters. They can give a little salute, you know, and it be, oh, I wasn't actually a Nazi, I'm joking. And that's exactly what you saw here. You saw the smirk he had immediately when he did it. You saw the laughter from the audience. And that's one of the reasons I think it's important to talk about the, you know, comedy from a more technical perspective, because what is the joke?
What is the joke? What is the joke?
Oh, like you said, Todd, oh, you look ridiculous for saying I'm bad for giving a clear Nazi salute. That's the joke. And what that means is they think criticism of Nazis or Nazi symbols is funny, you know? And if you think that's a laughing matter, that's a fucking problem. It's a problem that you think it's a joke. Even if I don't care what's in your heart. I don't care if you're doing it because you're a genuine Nazi. I don't care if you're doing it as a joke. They both have the same goddamn effect and should both have the same goddamn consequences. And we need to hold each other to a higher standard than that. We don't. Oh, there goes my light. We don't. But that's the problem. And you can apply that to like, any sort of edgy joke, you know. And again, we make edgy jokes all the time on here. We're fans of dark humor. But if the dark humor can also be interpreted as a signal to Nazis that you support them, it's no longer dark humor. It's providing cover for Nazis. That's it. You can make much better jokes without providing cover for Nazis.
Yeah, I love this question of what the joke is, because they could do this. Like, you could pull out a swastika if you wanted and saying, well, you know, I'm only doing this because this is an ancient Hindu symbol for peace and prosperity, whatever. All right, I got that. But this is not 5,000 years ago. This is today. And today that has a very specific meaning. And you know that, right? You know that. It
was just a Roman salute, TJ. It was just a Roman salute.
I'm going to get to that Roman salute thing. I'm so glad you brought that up. I forgot all about that. Let me write that down, Roman salute. But you know what this means in current day in the modern context. So even if, and trust me, that is a huge if, you're being sincere by wearing the swastika as a symbol of peace, you know what other people are going to think. This is what I used to say to folks who had Confederate flags back in the day. And they say, listen, to me, it's heritage, not hate. It's like, well, buddy, you're from Michigan. It's not your, well, I don't know. I just like the Confederate flag or something. And so, okay, listen, even if you're being sincere, you're being honest here, that you don't see the Confederate flag as a symbol of hate, you know millions of people do, and you're perfectly fine with that. Why? Like, why are you okay with this? Like, if there was something that I liked, but I knew millions of people found fantastically offensive and had an actual reason, like a historical reason, like, okay, well, all right, I'm going to put, my ego to the side here to not appear like a sociopath, but they kind of like it. The Roman salute thing, when I saw it, My first thought when I saw this, Elon Musk doing it, by the way, if you guys, he did it twice in a row. I don't know if everyone out there saw the angles. He did it toward the crowd, turned around, did the rear of the crowd. He knew exactly what he was doing, and the biting his lip when he did it. And
and the exhale of just like it was so aggressive.
I've literally never seen one that's so obvious and I've never seen it in my entire life.
Yeah, Herman Goering never hit.
You don't just fumble your way into that. You don't just stumble into that in your life ever, and especially you don't stumble into it twice in a row. And if you guys look, there was one angle where it showed it from the side. He stepped into it when he did it. He didn't just stand still; like he forcefully put it in there. No one sends your heart to another person. And I love those videos from the crowd, where you can see and hear the actual hardcore MAGAs who are there for that inauguration day speech say what it was. Like the audio is on there. There's one where the dude's like, "Yo, this MFer just did a Sig Heil." And
yep. That's it's the. But when I saw it, my first thought was I didn't expect that my heart goes out to you to be the defense. I didn't expect that. I did.
That was very funny. I cannot believe that.
I was like, come on.
People were genuinely like, bro, he said his heart goes out to you. It couldn't have been a Nazi salute. Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Are you yeah, come on. Like, there are a few times where you run across defenses where like, I don't believe you're being sincere at all. No one in the history of mankind has ever thrown their heart to the crowd like that, including Elon Musk, by the way. A king's ransom to you. If you can find any video of Elon Musk saying, my heart goes out to you in that fashion.
No. He actually, there is a video of him saying something similar, like to my heart goes out to you. And he's like, it's so clearly a completely different thing.
Oh no, not saying the words, but doing the symbol when he does the
whole thing.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, at all. But when I saw it, I thought, oh, I bet they're going to go with the Roman salute thing. And the only reason I thought that was because I watched a fantastic miniseries on HBO called Rome. If you guys haven't watched it, it's incredible. And when I watched it, I saw that the Roman soldiers, when they saluted Caesar, they did it exactly like that. I said, oh, okay, I guess it came from Rome. Turns out it didn't. Turns out, this is weird. So in looking into this, the Roman salute comes from a painting from like the 1700s. But I remember seeing the painting in my literature book in like 11th grade, where it showed some Roman soldiers holding swords. And then there was 5 or 6 of them doing the hands out salute to the swords or whatever. And that was taken and adopted by the fascists because they thought it was a Roman salute. It was actually just made up by the painter. There's no actual historical evidence of Roman soldiers saluting in that fashion. Like, we don't know how they saluted, but that was just from a couple hundred years ago. But yeah, that was just kind of wild here. And John, this is back to the why. Well, what is the joke? I love this question here because there's a reason that in general, right wingers are not that funny, because conservative comedy is dog shit. Conservative comedy relies on beating people up. That's it. And you will see this when you ask them, like, hey, what's the punchline here? And the punchline is usually, look how stupid that person is, or look how bad that person feels. Because conservatives have 2 jokes. They have 2 jokes. Their first joke is, oh, look at all these genders, like the Apache helicopter. They have that joke. And then a few years ago, they came up with Elon Musk is an African American. Those are their only 2 jokes that they have. And everything else is, look how mad the libs are. Isn't that funny? Look how mad the libs are. It's so funny. It's how a 4-year-old does comedy, where they do something to piss you off and laugh their asses off. I've never understood that. I've never understood how anyone finds that funny. But yeah, it's not a joke. You're just being an asshole. Just admit it. Just say, yeah, I like being a prick. I like being an insufferable moron. And I find pleasure in that because I have a fridge temperature IQ. Just say that. I would rather you do that than say, oh, no, it's some sort of complex 5D chess type of humor. No, it's not. You're just a dick. That's it.
You know what really annoys me, TJ? That's so clear and obvious. Like, anyone who's arguing for this side of the aisle that is intelligent, right? Like, that does actually look at these things analytically. And I'm like, I can respect the way that you're breaking this down. They still support this sort of fucking bullshit. Like, yeah. I know that they know, and I know that they know what they're doing. And it's upsetting to me that so many people are just okay with it, because there are a lot of people who understand that the joke is just hurting people.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, no, that's totally fine, acceptable to do. And it's like, how do I even have a conversation with you? Like, how do I even have a conversation with you if you think like, yeah, it's funny to just hurt people? That's funny. You know, like if I guess like I don't like, there has to be like some sort of consent on the joke. Like slapstick comedy, I guess, is like, I'm just laughing at people's pain. But the people who are in pain are the ones trying to get me to laugh in that situation. It is not the people who they are hurting. And it stuns me that this is such a hard concept for people to understand, because I do believe they innately understand it. I believe that they at some level understand what the joke is. They might not be able to articulate it or analyze it, but they must on some level understand that they are laughing because someone they don't like is in pain. And I just, it stuns me that doesn't give them pause.
I don't know. Have you guys watched conservative comedy? Like, have you watched it? Like, you watch like Roseanne Barr or something?
Mhm.
It's not laughter, it's clapter. It's just saying stuff that you don't like about your opponents. And then, Jim Brewer. Jim Brewer. For those, John, you may not have any idea who Jim Brewer is, but Jim Brewer was a SNL host 1,000 years ago, I think in the early or mid 90s or something. He was in Half Baked. He was the guy on the couch in Half Baked. And
this guy, I know this guy. Yeah. He's
done a hard right turn into doing conservative comedy. If you ever have a hack washed up, you'll see this with a lot of hack washed up comedians who can't make it in the comedy world. They'll just do conservative comedy, and you're gonna see why. Because this is all it takes.
I mean, what do they do? Like, hey, what about these transgenders?
Really?
That's actually better than what TJ's about to show.
Yeah. All right, here we go. This is Jim Brewer doing a hilarious bit.
You know what a cockatoo is? A cockatoo. And that's what everyone's become. Little cockatoos staring at the screen.
Facts and figures, facts and figures. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci.
Trust the science. Trust the science.
Specialist, numbers going up. One mask, two masks, vaccinated, double.
People, that's the entire bit. The entire bit is making animal sounds and saying stuff that is good advice and a funny voice, and the crowd, it's side splitting. They can't get enough of it. And my favorite are the cutaway shots, because no one in the audience is anywhere south of 75. And I don't believe they find that funny. I don't believe it, but they like making fun of their opponents, and that brings them joy. Have you ever seen this, Todd, with Jim Brewer? Did you know?
No, I had no idea. Like, that's just like, it's just like actors who become hardcore conservatives. Like, they cease to be good at acting. Like Roseanne, like prime example. The dude who I grew up watching on the Dukes of Hazzard. I don't even know what his name is. He's super conservative. The guy who was in Varsity Blues.
Oh,
the coach. I don't know what his name is. Like, it's like once your brain gets to that point, like, you cease to be creative in any way. And I just can't imagine. No, I've never seen that, because after like 5 seconds, I was like, the secondhand embarrassment is so high, I can't even watch it.
Todd is never coming back on the show. It's like, you guys going to subject me to this nonsense. Todd, I think it's the other way around. I think that a lot of folks, they kind of stumble into fame or success. Like, your Kevin Sorbos or, I don't know, where they get some notoriety and then they start losing work, or they lose a step and they're not as good as they were. And they think, oh, a good way to get some easy money is to go on the conservative circuit, is to be a Scott Baio and say, oh, look at this. You guys remember me from that show or that movie?
Yeah.
But then again, that's the best case scenario, because there are like legitimately good, talented people who love being conservative, like Mel Gibson or John Voight, like people who could actually act like, they didn't have to do this. They're just actually evil on the inside. That's a lot worse to see. I don't know if you guys saw Mel Gibson on Joe Rogan's show. Seems like an insane person when he was. We already knew he was. Yeah, but even worse than I thought. Joe Rogan asked him, "Hey man, what do you think about evolution?" For some reason, why would you ask Mel Gibson that? And Mel Gibson does this weird rocking thing where he's like, I don't really know, man. I was like, what is wrong with this guy? I mean, outside of all the other insane stuff, but when you see like legitimately talented people who don't have to go down the conservative route, seeing them do it is a lot more concerning, as Elon Musk would say.
I saw. Oh, here it is. I want to play this video from a friend of the show, Keegan. He posted this. I don't know if it was today. It was recently. It was 5 days ago. But it was excellent. It kind of explained, because for people who don't know, who haven't seen him on the show before, he is an expert in political psychology. That's what he went to school for. Like, that's what he does. And so I just want to play this for everyone who's wondering, because like me, I'm like, hey, he made a funny bird noise before he even got into what the joke was about, before he even said who he was making fun of. All he went was, ah! And you saw those fucking old fuckers just laughing hysterically. And I was like, how can this be real? Like, how can you possibly be finding that fun? I've seen infants that would be like, that's a little bit below my brow right now. Like that's not funny for me. Like that's how infantile this man is. But I wanted to play this because I couldn't help but thinking about this as I watched it today. So I'll share my screen here. And we got to have Keegan on the show again, but this is very well done. Oh, wait.
You've given me. Hi, my name is Keegan, and I'm an expert in political psychology. So this is a meta-analysis from the European Journal of Personality of 67 prior studies, showing that lower cognitive abilities are associated with right-wing and prejudiced views. I love this quote. This is amazing. Quote, some scholars have argued that individuals with lower cognitive skills are relatively ill-equipped to process complex and new social information and to understand constantly changing societal contexts. By emphasizing societal traditions, the preservation of the status quo, and strict group boundaries, ideologies endorsing resistance to social change, in other words, right-wing ideologies, should be particularly appealing to those with lower cognitive abilities. Shouldn't open up that bag of worms, buddy. Wait, is it bag of worms? Too autistic to know sayings.
So, and I just could not help thinking of that, about how they're just laughing on command at something that clearly is not funny. Everyone in the world can look at that and go like, that wasn't worthy of that belly laugh that you just gave. And before I throw stones in a glass house, we have all laughed at things that weren't actually funny in order to, like, because of just the environment we were in, people were laughing around us. And so we felt the need to conform to the laughter around us. And we have laughed at things that weren't funny. Every single human has done this. But the point of the laughter is to maintain those societal norms, because yes, it's scary when they see these things changes because they literally can't comprehend them. They cannot keep up. And so their only defense mechanism is to maintain the societal norms rigidly. So anything that pokes fun at the people trying to give them fucking science as a reason to change their mind, well, that deserves ridicule. And that's the point of the comedy. That's why it's funny. Because the point of it's not about whether it's funny or not. It's about whether or not it furthers their worldview. And it really is that simple. That's why I always say, get the fuck out of here if you're like, I can't joke about things anymore. Jack Bauer can't joke about things anymore. That's why he's doing conservative comedy. It's the complete other way around, bro.
Well, I want to add to that is that, yeah, we have laughed in situations where it's not funny or something, or the crowd laughs and you laugh too, kind of involuntarily. There's another situation in which you laugh at something that's not funny. It's when you're inebriated It's when your brain is not firing on all cylinders, and so that might describe this too. But I hesitate to give them that much credit that, well, they're laughing because they're making fun of their enemies and stuff like that. Because yeah, I know people do that, but I hold them in low regard. However, their political minds are. Like, I don't find, oh, look, Donald Trump is a giant Cheeto to be funny. That's not funny. People do it all the time. It's not. It's stupid. It's a low ball, zero effort joke. Oh, look how fat he is. Like, okay, this isn't. You didn't put any effort into this joke here. I have a lot of respect for this art form, for comedy, and I kind of expect more. If you're going to get a laugh out of me, you got to try. You can't just say, oh, look at this. Look how dumb the Republicans are. Yeah, I know. That's I don't need you to tell me this in the form of a joke. Well, you can, but make it a good one. I don't know. I just I get upset at that shit. All right, there's this.
We just did a whole bit on bits.
I know, on bits. Listen,
comedy. Like that was a whole video right there. We had no plans on doing it. It just went that direction.
There are very few things that set me off worse than bad comedy. I can't stand it. Or not necessarily bad comedy, because I can respect someone who's trying to be funny and they fuck it up, because I always say that if you tell a joke and your audience doesn't laugh, it's always your fault, because you either fucked up the timing of the joke, either the joke didn't really make sense, or more often than not, you just failed to understand your audience. Because there are jokes that I'll tell to you guys that I wouldn't tell to my family, because like I'm still going to be funny either way, but I'm going to make sure to tailor the joke to my audience. If you fuck that up, it's still your fault. It's never the audience's fault, which is why it's so insufferable when you hear comedians saying, I can't even tell jokes anymore. No, you just suck. You just kind of suck, because the job of a comedian is to know their audience. This is a hard segue. John's going to be very disappointed in me because it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. But I wanted to get this before we end the show. We're at half an hour left. But I wanted to throw this up just to see if you guys have seen this. So Nancy Mace, as we all know, has been crusading for women's issues.
Before TJ gets into this, I need to comment on the fact that he couldn't find a way to segue bad jokes into Nancy Mace. Like,
does she make jokes? Does she? Well, I guess she, okay.
Speaking of bad jokes,
Nancy Mace, yeah, it's true.
Nancy Mace.
Damn,
very simple, TJ.
I can't stand Nancy Mace, man. That would have been a decent one. Like, bad joke. Look at this. Anyway, but Nancy Mace was talking about. She's always talking about trans issues and how she's terrified for her life because trans women exist and everything. But she made a post I saw a couple of days ago where she showed a picture of her. She went to the Citadel, which is a military academy, I believe, in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And she was the first woman to graduate from the Citadel. And so she put a post up saying, I didn't graduate as the first woman from the Citadel to see men invade women's space and stuff like that. And our dear friend Matt Walsh saw this post and was none too pleased. And I wanted to show everyone what he said here. And
Did he call her DEI hire?
Basically so. He said, the girl boss feminism routine isn't just cringy, it also directly undermines our argument. The Citadel was a male-only space forced by law to admit females in the name of diversity and inclusion. That is the exact argument trans-identifying males use to invade female spaces. Nancy Mace was literally a beneficiary of a DEI program. It's a ridiculous and tone-deaf thing to brag about in this moment. And you know what? Matt Walsh is dead fucking right. He's 100% correct. And which I don't think we've ever said this on the show before, but Matt Walsh told no lies in that entire sentence that, yes, this was a male program. The reason, actually, there's two reasons Nancy Mace was allowed in the Citadel. First, for the military and military academies expanding their reach to grow their recruiting pool. Why wouldn't they want to do that? Second, because her dad was the commandant of the school. Very important to point that out. That's why Nancy Mace was there.
It wasn't DEI. It was nepotism.
It was nepotism and DEI. It was like the best possible combination of everything. And so he's like, yeah, so you're the beneficiary of a DEI program and you're a woman, interloper, invading men's spaces. This is the exact argument you're using against the trans folks. You should stop. And by the way, feminism is bad. I mean, he was wrong about that. But I mean, this is just that hypocrisy burning doesn't get people anywhere. But I like when it's right on right hypocrisy, because the only hope we have of surviving this, honestly, is if the right wing starts tearing themselves apart. And also, we kind of knew it's coming too, because whenever you see these people who are the members of disenfranchised groups supporting the right wing, we always say, like, folks, it's just a matter of time before they come for you, and now they've come for you, Nancy Mace. I expect to see a whole lot more of this. So that's one of the only ways we can start progressing, is if they start tearing themselves apart. Todd, I know you got something to say about this. You were
I'm just like,
exhaling and eye rolling the whole time.
I'm like, why did he stop with she was invading a male space at the Citadel? Why did he not say she's invading a male space in Congress? Like, why is that not his argument? Like, but it's good to see.
Women in Congress is like women voting in general. I mean, that's just a DEI program for democracy.
Yeah, right. But it's really got under my skin that she's leading this charge. Like, listening to her talk about DEI, and then in the next breath talk about, I'm the first woman to ever graduate from the Citadel, which I'm like, awesome, congratulations, but it's not okay for you to think that, because you're being hypocritical.
I hate to give it to Matt Walsh, but I will say, excuse me, sorry, that Matt Walsh is very good at what he does. Matt Walsh is, in fact, one of the best. He is so good at writing bait. He might be the all-time greatest, because the way that he's able to instigate everyone and still have a pretty strong argument is absolutely incredible. Because how many people he pissed off with that tweet that are going to engage with it, both on the left and the right. And as TJ said, no lies really detected in it. I applaud it. I have game, respect, game. But like, it is funny. I will say, I don't think it is cool to make fun of normal people when the leopards eat their face. I think it is counterproductive to what we're trying to do. I think it's cruelty for the sake of cruelty. And kind of like, what is the joke? The joke is that this poor person, it doesn't have fucking healthcare now. Like, that's funny to you. But when the leopards eat the other leopards' faces, that's hilarious. That is the funniest fucking thing. When you have someone who has perpetuated and benefited from this leopards eating facing party at the highest of levels, it's funny when leopards eat their face. And that's exactly what happened to Nancy Mace here, because she totally uses the girl boss feminism thing.
So have we gotten to the bottom
fucking argument?
Have we got to the bottom, like the mistake she made thinking that there was a trans woman in the bathroom and she confronted that person? Was that just like some random citizen who was at the Capitol using the bathroom, or was that another Congress member? Do we know that?
I didn't hear about that. I don't know if I heard about that.
Yeah, Nancy Mace. Of course, Nancy Mace is the one who drafted the legislation to keep the other Congresswoman out of the women's bathroom. Well, Mace in the last few days went in the bathroom and confronted a woman who she thought was a trans woman in the bathroom, and ended up having to apologize. And I never heard if it was like another member of Congress or if it was just some private citizen who she harassed in there.
Two things weird about that. The first thing is that's going to be like, these bathroom bills don't make sense if you think about it for 5 minutes. They don't make sense at all, because what's going to happen a lot are women who don't appear feminine enough. Maybe they're too tall, or maybe their faces are too wide, or whatever, are going to be accused of being men, and they're going to call the cops on them. And that's going to, or we're going to have genital checks before you go to bathrooms or whatever. And second, Congress people have their own bathrooms. Like, it's a weird, like, they have bathrooms in the office. It's a completely unnecessary thing. I hadn't heard about that, but I don't know. Did you find anything, John?
Yeah, no, I'm reading this now. Like, I can't believe that I hadn't heard about this. This happened. Mm-hmm. This is from Friday, January 24th. I guess I was on vacation paying attention personally, but this feels like it has all of the, God, my fucking light. This feels like it has all of the makings of just a viral fucking story.
A lot going on this last week, though.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. A lot going on. In a slow news week, this would have carried it. But it was her and Lauren Boebert.
Come on, really? This is a setup. Come on.
And they confronted. So the pair confronted a cisgender woman in the restroom, mistakenly believing her to be the Delaware Democratic lawmaker who's first out transgender member of Congress. That's funny. They didn't just expect her to be trans. They expected her to be a specific trans woman who she wasn't. That's really funny. McBride had previously said that she would follow House rules after Johnson banned transgender people. The incident has reignited criticism of Johnson's anti-trans bathroom regulations. That's so funny. Not that they just thought it was a random trans woman. They thought it was a literal member of Congress whose picture they can look up. They work with this person.
You know,
and they're like, I think you're this person.
You know what that shows? That shows how great of a transition McBride had. Honestly, that is like, oh, you actually mistaked, a cis woman for her. I would be very proud.
There is actually people out there who are making videos of Nancy Mace and the transgender. I'm sorry, what's her name? The Congresswoman.
McBride. I can't remember the last name. I think it's McBride.
It was McBride, yeah.
And they're like, of these two people, which one? And again, I'm not for making fun of anybody's appearance.
We see where you're going. Yeah.
But Nancy Mace is the one who a lot of people, when given the lineup of which one of these two people do you think, it's like Nancy Mace. Like, which is not cool. That's not cool. But it just shows the ridiculousness of this argument. And like John said, like, you said, like, how do you even begin to enforce this? You can't. It is unenforceable.
You can't.
That's exactly what me and T are saying. Like, what's the joke? The joke in that situation is not that Nancy Mace looks like a dude. That if people want to believe that, fine. I don't care about that. But Nancy Mace does. And the point of the joke is to highlight the hypocrisy of caring. Like that's the joke. It's not, haha, Nancy Mace is ugly. Which honestly, this is the first I've ever heard of this. I've never seen Nancy Mason calling. She kind of looks like a dude, but to each their own.
She doesn't look like a dude. But like, if you're gonna she's taller and a lot thinner. It's like, okay, all right. If you're forcing me to pick, okay. And I like that we have a comment from I Will Trans Your Kids. The Congresswoman is Sarah Elizabeth McBride. Thank you. I Will Trans Your Kids. I wanted to. Oh God, that's great. That's great. I saw this continuation from Matt Walsh and everything about this Nancy Mace thing. So another favorite person on the show, Meghan McCain, has commented saying that Matt Walsh went too far. Once again, Todd, I saw the eye roll or whatever. Meghan McCain, I've said this about Ben Shapiro, or honestly any rich conservative born to a rich family or an influential family. Even if, let's say I was born to, like, my dad was a senator or something, and I was a conservative and said, you guys need to work to get to where you are in life, I wouldn't say it out loud. I would be too embarrassed. I'd be too ashamed to say, yeah, all you folks who don't have it as good as me, you just aren't working hard enough. You would never hear me say shit like that. So the fact that Meghan fucking McCain gets up on her high horse talking about how, people need to scrap and really make it to survive is hilarious. But she jumped on Matt Walsh for his rude words to Nancy Mace, and I want to show.
This entire fucking sequence. This is
great.
All new to me. I'm learning so much on this show.
This is great. Yeah,
it's hilarious discourse. I feel so bad about going on vacation. I wish I was here for all this.
Have you heard about the McCain girl starting the rumors about the Obamas?
Oh, the divorce?
Yeah, the divorce and the alleged affair with Jennifer Aniston.
That's real. Let's stick it to Obama. Let's make up a rumor about him fucking Jennifer Aniston. That's really going to make him look like a loser.
That's funny too, because it's one of those things. Like, look, even if it's true, it sounds wild. Even if it's true, nobody is going to care. I mean, more than half of the adults I know are divorced. You think he was going to give a fuck? Anyone's going to care? I don't know. It's just
Trump is divorced 3 times.
Trump is 3 times. Yeah. So. All right, so Meghan McCain responded, this is insanely ignorant in the terms of history of transgenderism and how it's manifested. Transgenderism began and was popularized via male autogynephiles. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That's a word I've never seen before. Autogynephiles and male
sex. Is this Poop Girl? Is this who we're talking about? Who?
No. That's I know her name, but it's not her. Poop Girl is like the gun girl or whatever, but Meghan McCain is John McCain's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Megan Murphy. Megan Murphy. Wrong person. Shit. Well, I don't know what Megan Murphy is, but she's not Poop Girl either. Poop Girl's Caitlyn something. Caitlyn Bennett. That's her name. Caitlyn Bennett. Caitlyn Bennett. I take nothing back of the shitting on Meghan McCain, but she did not make this tweet. My bad. Feminism screwed up during the third wave and became not feminism really, but second wave. Matt Walsh says, this is the lamest dodge and no one is falling for it. Feminists casually dismiss all the damage their movement has done as being part of a different wave. Tell me, Megan, which wave decided that humans in the womb don't count as people and have no moral value? What was the good wave and what was the bad one? I lose track. Once again, Matt Walsh bringing the heat as usual by saying that feminism is bad. I don't care which wave. I don't care. It's rotten to the core. And this is an argument that you'll hear conservatives say a lot. That, you know, all these pushes for diversity, they destabilize institutions. They use this argument against the military desegregating, the military desegregating back in the 40s or 50s. And they said, listen, if you bring black soldiers into white units, that's going to, you know, destabilize the culture of the unit. And they're right. It did. The unit figured it out, right? Yeah, you're going to run across problems like that. But if you want to know if something works, look to see if the military.
The military has always been a testing ground for everything in society. It
is the surefire way to see, like, bringing women in the military essentially doubled your chance to bring people into the force, and you could put them in any job that you want. Women, they put women in combat. It's like, okay, it makes sense. Like, if they can meet the qualifications, why would we want the extra bodies? Bringing, black soldiers in, it's like, oh yeah, this increases morale of the troops. It makes the fighting force more efficient and more lethal. This is how I know, by the way, that astrology is bullshit. Because if astrology were real, the military would be using it. You would have units set up. Say, okay, the Scorpios work well with the Pisces. So make sure you would know everyone in your platoon would have the exact same month of birth. We would know all about this. It's also how I know magic doesn't work. Like, if magic helped us win wars, every battalion would be just full of wizard platoons.
Us kill brown people, we would have done it already.
Yeah. There would be full wizard platoons every single time we went to combat to help us win these wars. So yeah, that's how I know this stuff is bullshit, because if there was any truth to it whatsoever, the military would have tried it, just like they did with desegregation and with integration with women. So
DJ, speaking of magic and the military and turfs, I just want to pop off a real quick Harry Potter take. That Harry Potter should just use a sniper rifle. That's one of those things I've always said. Like, why the fuck did you fight Voldemort with magic when like tanks exist? Like, it never made any sense to me. But no, it's really funny because we say this all the time. I respect logically consistent arguments more than I do a lot of fucking arguments. And Matt Walsh is making the logically consistent arguments.
He is.
Yeah, you got to give it to him. He's fucking wrong.
Yeah, he's a bigot.
He's basing it off of incorrect evidence. Because, like you said, if this were actually true, if segregation or
integration,
I was like, what's the opposite of segregation?
Yeah.
If integration actually destabilized institutions, our military would suck dick.
Yep.
Our entire country would suck dick. How do these people think that we are the country that has the most diversity, the most immigrants, the most clashing of cultures, and we just coincidentally also happen to be the richest country overall, the richest country per capita, the country with the strongest military, the country with the strongest tech sector, all of these things, the country with the largest cultural output, all of these things exist. And we did it in spite of the fact that we're the most diverse country? Are you really fucking trying to tell me that? Yeah, like I said, with the fucking diversifying your stock portfolio. Conservatives understand that. They understand why you would need to balance out the different stocks you invest in, even if each individual stock is of equal value. So why don't you get that with people, bro? It's human capital. Yeah. It should make sense to you.
The only argument you could make that would be logically sound, the only one, is that what you said, that it happened in spite of it. Because us being the most, the richest or most powerful country, whatever, and being the most diverse doesn't necessarily mean that the diversity caused that. That's true. But it does mean it didn't prevent it, right? You can't argue that it prevented it, because we could be, China is not particularly diverse, but China is catching up and beating us in a lot of ways. One of which is with the DeepSeek AI thing, as you guys saw a couple weeks ago, which, look, I don't like AI. I'm a boomer when it comes to this shit. I don't like it. I don't like asking it questions. I don't like talking to it. Not because I'm like scared or whatever, but once again, like I take pride in what I write and the jokes I tell. I'm not going to go to a fucking machine to do it for me. That's just me. But you know, these giant plagiarism machines that it's been very funny that last week, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was standing next to Donald Trump saying, we're going to invest $500 billion into OpenAI, a number I'd never heard before. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say 500 billion before like that, unless it was like in a math problem or something. Certainly not when it came to dollars. And I was like, whoa, that's a huge investment. And then 10 minutes later, China comes out and says, oh, we got one better than you, and we did it for $6 million, and tanked all the AI investments in the stock market. Very funny to see Nvidia lose $1 billion overnight or something like that. What did you think when you saw that, Todd?
I'm like you. I'm kind of boomerish when it comes to all that kind of AI stuff. It infuriates me.
AI.
It infuriates me. Like somebody sent me a thing of an advertisement of some sort of new AI schoolwork. Like you don't even have to write a paper here to do this, and it'll create the perfect citations. It'll do all this stuff, and I'm like, why did I even go to college? Why did I even get these degrees? Well, I know why, but still, it is infuriating to me to know that kind of stuff is out there, and that it'll be used. Some will use it for evil, but yeah, I was the same as you. $500 billion. I was like, wait a minute, our entire defense budget's like $800 billion. So that's a massive number to say that you're going to invest into one project.
It's a cartoonishly large number.
It is. It's 800 billion, by the way, folks, for 10 years. Whenever you hear these budgets come out from the government and says, the budget military is 800 billion, that's 80 billion a year. I don't know how long the OpenAI investment was going to last, but goddamn, $500 billion. Like, what do you think when you saw this, John?
Yeah, so before I get into that, Kyle issued a correction for me, and a lot of people correct me when I say this. He said, correction, we aren't the richest country per capita. We're not even in the top 5. That is true. When I say richest country per capita, I mean of the countries that fucking count. Because, Luxembourg has a higher per capita GDP
than us.
Who
gives a fuck?
But, that doesn't matter. Like, all of the countries above us are not in relative size or prominence to us. Of the peer nations, we have the richest population per capita. Anyway,
that's like scoring 35 points per game in the NBA in 4 games. Okay, good job. Great.
Exactly.
Really
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you need a certain level of minutes played before you compete for this title. But anyway, yeah. So here's the thing. I agree with your assessment of AI, PJ, especially when it comes to these language models, because it's dumb. I fucking hate using it. Like I have tried to use it, and I'm just like, every single time I use it, I spend more time correcting it than I would just writing off the tips of my fingertips.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'm really fucking good at that. Like, I do this a lot. I am a fucking writer. This is what I do professionally. I'm a professional fucking communicator. I can do a better job than ChatGPT. But a lot of people can't, and I do respect how it does help a lot of people articulate things that they couldn't have before. Do I think that there might be some problems with people using that as a crutch and not able to actually analyze, what the fuck people are saying? Yes, I do. But all right, there are marvels in machine learning and AI, like absolute marvels. It's going to completely revolutionize the human experience. When you apply this sort of technology to the medical field, when you apply it to physics, when you apply it to all sorts of things, like, we're going to just solve so many diseases. I read an article the other day that we were able to use language learning models with elephants, and we found that elephants that are like in the San Diego Zoo are communicating with elephants that are in a zoo, I think like in fucking like Las Vegas or something, and they can hear that distance, and they were able to identify specific patterns that were names, and when they played them back to elephants, if they like played that pattern back, the elephant would go and respond as if someone was calling its name. Like the applications of these technologies, when people are just like, "Oh, AI, it's poopy shit," like I don't agree with you there, because like the applications of these technologies are very important, and it is going to determine the next generation of technological dominance over this world is who can build the best AI. And I do think that's important. I do think it's something worth investing in. At the same time, giving $500 billion to OpenAI is open corruption. And there's no other way to look at that other than this is just fucking corruption, especially when China's releasing DeepSeek as an open source fucking platform. It is maybe the most damning fucking indicator of why capitalism sucks is that this, and China's mixed market. I hate when people call it communist because it really fucking isn't. But like when this much more communist economy is able to produce the same thing we have spent all of this time and effort and capital on and they make it better, cheaper, and freely available. That's better in every fucking way. Yeah. It clears it every single time. And OpenAI had a head start. Like OpenAI has been working on this model for longer than this Chinese company has. And they just fucking kicked our ass at the most important technological innovation that we have right now. It's like the fucking space race. So yeah, this is just a laughing, it turned fucking Silicon Valley into a laughing stock. And that's why you saw the largest falls in fucking stock prices for companies like NVIDIA in like the history of the US stock market. Because once that idea that, they're always going to be dominant, once that goes for gooey, you're going to see the house of cards fucking fall, and it's not going to be good.
This is like, I do point this because yes, like China, if you look up the economy China uses, it's a state capitalist economy. No one knows what that means. Explaining this to people is very difficult, but it is at least in this example, like certainly with the AI model, it's much better much closer to what we would like to see. Because one of the primary arguments that people use in favor of the, cutthroat capitalism that we worship here in the United States is that competition drives innovation. That let's say John and Todd and I all have differing companies, different companies trying to make cell phones or whatever. And the theory is that if I want to sell my cell phone, I have to make a better phone than them. And so whenever John comes out with the new, like his camera is really good, it's like, okay, well, I got to make my camera better than John's. Or Todd comes out and his interface is incredible. People love it. Okay, I got to make a better interface. And that competition keeps making better and better products. All right, that's one way to go. But, guilds can develop here like they did with light bulbs, where they all got together and said, hey, the light bulbs are lasting too long. Let's stop sell. We're going to agree we're not going to sell light bulbs that last 10 years. They're going to last 2 years and they have to buy more, so we make money. But a better way to do this, which is kind of what China could prove with OpenAI, is if, say we have 3 companies, we're all working together. Like we're all, it's like, hey, I'll share the stuff that I make with you. You share the stuff that I make with me. And you know how I know it's better? It's exactly what we did with COVID vaccines. Like with COVID vaccines, people were very free sharing that information because the survival of the planet was at stake. It's like, hey, look, this is no time to be hiding shit from each other, okay? We have got to get together and share everything as much as we can, and of course we're going to patent it once we find it. But, once we get there, we're going to try to find a way to do this. But yeah, I just like, I like seeing the fall of that because, yeah, the technology is going to happen. And the country that I think Sam Harris said something about this, about like what you mentioned, John, with the importance of AI and how powerful it's going to be, that once AI hits the level that we're all afraid of, like the Terminator level, where it comes from is very important, right? Like if the Chinese government develops Terminators, it's over, right? It's done. Like they are the rulers of the planet. So I can see like for national security why Americans would really want to invest in this, space race style. But seeing like their vision of this system just collapse on its face in a hilarious fashion. The stock market collapsing is bad, but it was funny. What do you think when you saw it, Todd?
Couldn't happen to a better person, really.
Right? Yeah, yeah. I agree.
And it is funny, TJ. Like when people see us laughing about this, I'm sure they're like, "Do you want China to win the global domination?" It's like, no, I don't. No. That's why I'm laughing at it. That's why I want everyone to realize that they're kicking our ass and we need to be more like them in order to win. They're not kicking our ass because like they got lucky. They're doing a better job. Like you said, if it works, it works. I don't give a shit if and people have like said this about me with like DEI programs too. Like, go back to that. Like, oh, if you showed me fucking evidence that a DEI program was like hurting a company, I'd be like, yeah, no, they should change that DEI program. You just haven't though. Like this evidence, this data just doesn't exist. If China's able to do it, well, you know what? Maybe we should take a fucking hint,
Right, yeah.
like before they just lap us.
You know what it's like, John? It's like whenever we were criticizing the Democratic Party for the elections they ran and said, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. And everyone took it. It's like, well, I guess you want Kamala to lose. Like, no, that's not what we're saying. We're saying, yeah, you could do better, right? There's nothing stopping you from adopting a plan that actually works. And to close out, we're losing time here, but I wanted to mention, this is a little back further what you said, John, about gloating and everything. About leopards eating people's faces. Have you guys, one thing that I want to see stop, it's been long enough, we have to put a plug in this, is people berating folks who didn't vote for Harris. What good is this doing at this point? Right? I don't see the value in like making videos and like long dissertations about, well, I hope you guys got what you wanted. And now I'm sitting out of politics and I hope you guys suffer. I hope Gaza gets turned into a glass parking lot. And, Latinos, you guys are getting kicked out. Why should I care? I don't see the value. And like you said, John, like just laughing at regular people with no power and saying that, well, I told you so. Good job with I told you so's. We got to get up and win the next election, and this isn't going to help us. So I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I find that very frustrating.
I see it a lot, and it's the exact same thing I said. About providing cover with the Nazi salute, right? If you're doing that, first of all, you don't have evidence that those people sitting out caused Trump to win, because again, it doesn't exist. When we did this with Hillary, I've been looking for this data. I don't think it's like come out yet, but like when we did this with Hillary's loss to Trump, we saw that the percentage of people who identify as progressives who voted was far higher than the percentage of liberals and moderates, who people identify as liberal moderates, who went out and voted. Progressives are the highest percentage voting population in the country. We are not the problem. Us sitting back and not voting is not the problem. There's some of us who are vocal and don't do it. And most of those people are fucking college kids. Like, this just isn't an actual problem. And by complaining about that, you are providing cover for people who just actually want to see Gaza burn, and giving them an outlet and say like, oh, I'm just attacking the progressives, but I really do want to watch Gaza burn. You're providing cover for that. And there's no reason to do it because, again, you don't have evidence to back up your argument. If all progressive voted, they'd probably win. But the bigger problem is the far larger population of liberal moderates not voting at lower or at higher rates than the fucking much smaller population of progressives. It's just not a real issue. And by drawing attention to it, you're really just you're helping the bad guys win.
Todd, have you seen any of this? Well, actually, we don't know your opinion on this, so it might be totally different. Let's hear.
I've been seeing a lot of it. And here's a couple of takes I have on it. First is that there's no way to pinpoint which group of people caused the election to go whichever way. There's not one group. And one of the hard things about being a Democrat, being progressive, is that we have being the party, the party that cares somewhat about human rights. And the other one does not, is that there's a lot of different factions of people who have different ideas about how everything should be handled. And I actually ended up on a weird side of TikTok the other day where this Jewish creator who was super Zionist, who was like, we don't give a shit about Elon Musk salute. You liberals need to stop even calling it out, because we told you the whole time who the real Nazis were. It's the Palestinians. And I'm like, where the fuck where did this come from? Where's this TikTok come from? But here's the thing. The Harris campaign, Democrats, they had the opportunity to win this election and they didn't. They had the opportunity to sell what they were selling to the electorate, and the electorate didn't buy it. And at the end of the day, it's the DNC, it's Biden, it's the Harris campaign, it's their fault. Like, they lost this by 1%. So there's a million things they could have done to get that extra 1%, it be a different outcome. And they didn't do those things. So
the 3,000 college kids across the country who didn't fucking vote because of Gaza, they weren't what flipped this fucking election. It was what you're saying, the actual leadership, the people in power that made the decisions that they did. TJ, what you said about the military, if the military is doing it, it's probably fucking effective. Same thing with the NFL. You know, it's like if you look at the NFL, they call it a copycat league because every time someone comes out with a better strategy that wins, everyone fucking copies it. They don't go, oh no, even though my strategy lost, I'm going to stick with it.
Right.
This one is right. No, they fucking don't. The people who do that get fired. And they don't get fired in a decade. They get fired the next fucking season. They might get fired in that same very fucking season because that's a league that actually cares about winning above all else. That's not how the Democrats fucking operate. They're like, oh, how dare you suggest that we change our strategy as a result of a loss? That would be terrible. We have a guy in our comment section right now saying the exact same thing. American Wasp with Dieter McBusiness. I don't know if that's the name of a show or if that's the actual guy. But he was like, have you all covered the DNC regime change as a big lesson from this election loss? We need to replace baby boomers, DNC neoliberal leadership with young, angry, unapologetically aggressive progressives. And Dieter, you're going to love our show if you subscribe because that is what we talk about all the fucking time. The people steering the ship are steering us into the iceberg. And if you're trying to defend the people steering the ship, you're pro-iceberg. I don't really give a shit about why you are that way. It's going to result in us hitting the iceberg.
Yeah, that's a great example with the NFL, John, because you're right. Like the NFL is the most successful league by far. The one good reason is revenue sharing too. By the way,
there's so many great examples of the NFL.
Cannot stress enough how important it is that the NFL shares revenue for broadcast money. It doesn't matter if your team sucks. It doesn't matter if one team has played more than the other. They all share the revenue equally. And as far as the leagues go, there's until recently, I mean the Chiefs they make money. They may not be the best football teams, but they will all end up making money. But the example you gave about how, hey, listen, if your team sucks and you find out, like other coaches are making better decisions and other coordinators are making better decisions, other GMs are drafting better players, I'm going to copy the ones that are being successful. I'm not going to blame the fans for not cheering loud enough. Yep. Like, that's what they're like, listen, where's our 12th man? You guys aren't showing up to the stadium. You guys aren't cheering loud enough when the other team to try to disrupt their huddle and their hard counts. What's wrong with you guys? Which is what the Democrats are doing. The Democrats are like, well, people aren't showing up to our games. Let's yell at them until they start attending. Say, no, like Todd said, give them a product they want to buy. I am tired of the sanctimony that I'm hearing for Democrats, and that like this is true for leftists too. A lot of times, that they said they'd rather be right than be effective or whatever. So like if you're married to this idea that no, what I did was right. Okay, did it work? That's what I want to know. Because Donald Trump, listen, I'm not saying Trump's a great guy. He did win 2 elections, all right? So you learn from your enemies. You don't got to be a terrible person, but learn what he did to ingratiate himself to people who were not clamoring for Donald Trump to run for president, not even Republicans. If you guys remember back in the day, they didn't want him. They didn't like him, but he won them over. Try winning people over instead of just being a dick and saying, yep, if you don't listen to me, then I guess you're a moron and an idiot and you have no values or whatever. But actually, you know what? You can do that, but you got to be charming and funny when you do it. And, which is what we try to do here. But I don't know. That's about time to wrap things up, fellas.
Hey, that's a great way to end it. So if you made it to this part of the video, thank you so much. I haven't said this in a while, but you really are our favorite viewer. No. Not the guy next to you, not the guy behind you, you, the one I'm pointing at right now. And if you want to know where to find our wonderful guest, well, I would hope you already know already because he's been on the show enough. But Superman Todd, where can people find you?
I'm on TikTok until it gets banned. I think I might start a YouTube channel here pretty soon. But as of right now, I'm just on TikTok.
Fantastic. We appreciate you, Superman Todd. Folks, we appreciate you watching the show as well. If you want to see me fuck up more Gen Z hearts, I have a hard time doing that. I don't know how they do that. It's kind of hard for me to do. It's difficult. Yeah, I don't know. But stick around for the show. Watch the episodes. We'll insult you, but we will be funny about it, so we know you'll enjoy it. So catch you guys next week.